History always remembers the loud money, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts. But if you, like me, are fascinated by quiet power, the kind that shapes nations from the shadows, then you need to know the Belmonts. This is the story of a family that turned America's bloodiest conflict into their personal chess match. A dynasty whose influence we still touch today, from the subways beneath New York to the very fight for women's suffrage. But to understand how they could pull the strings of a nation, you have to meet the man who started it all. Not a king, not a general, but a 24-year-old immigrant who arrived in America with almost nothing, except for the single deadliest weapon on Wall Street. And that weapon wasn't a pistol or a patent. It was a name, Rothschild. The man holding this invisible key was named August Belmont. He was just 24 years old, a German Jewish immigrant stepping onto the chaotic docks of New York in 1837. To really picture his advantage, it helps to think of him as a kind of 19th century tech founder. Only instead of a garage in Silicon Valley, he had the full quiet backing of Europe's most powerful banking dynasty. He was their chosen man, sent to navigate the finances of the new world. But having the backing of the world's most powerful bank isn't where the story gets interesting. The Rothschilds didn't just hand over their empire, they made you earn it. And the story of what August had to endure to gain that trust, that's what forged the ambition he was about to unleash on America. And that story starts not on Wall Street, but in a quiet German town, and with a loss. It begins in the small Jewish community of Alzey, Germany, where a boy named August Schoenberg loses his mother. That early void often creates two things in a person: a deep wound or a relentless drive to fill it. For August, it was both. He was sent to Frankfurt, to a school founded by the legendary Rothschild family, and at just 14, he entered their bank. His first job? Sweeping the floors. But August wasn't just sweeping. He was listening. He was watching. In a world of whispers and secret codes, the person pushing the broom is invisible, and invisibility is a kind of power. In his spare time, he wasn't resting. He was devouring knowledge, mastering English, French, and Spanish, dissecting accounting principles until they were second nature. He was forging himself into a key that could unlock any door. Okay, wait. A young man working his way up from sweeping floors. You've heard this rags to riches story 1,000 times, but this is where you need to pay close attention.
Because what August Belmont does next is not the American dream. It is a cold, calculated act of defiance that should have destroyed him, and it's the single move that defined his entire legacy. In 1837, the Rothschilds dispatched their brilliant 24-year-old protege to the New World. His mission? Manage their interests in Havana, Cuba. But when his ship docks in New York City, he steps into a nightmare. This is the panic of 1837. Imagine it. Banks are shuttered, their doors chained. The air is thick with the smell of fear and desperation. Fortunes built over decades are vanishing in hours. The city is screaming. And in the middle of this chaos stands August Belmont. He is perfectly calm. He looks at this financial apocalypse and sees something else entirely. He sees a power vacuum. He sees opportunity. In a breathtaking act of insubordination, he ignores his orders.
He is supposed to go to Cuba. Instead, he writes to the Rothschilds, essentially telling them their plan is obsolete and his plan is better. He stays in New York, changes his name to the more aristocratic Belmont, and right there on the ruins of Wall Street, he opens his own firm, August Belmont and Company. He didn't just salvage the Rothschilds' investments, he used their immense capital to become the buyer of last resort, snapping up assets for pennies on the dollar. He became the calm center of the storm. Within 3 years, he wasn't just their agent, he was their indispensable American partner. He had conquered Wall Street. But here's the secret the truly powerful understand. Money buys comfort, but it doesn't buy control. For that, you need to own the system itself.
And to do that, August Belmont would have to get his hands dirty in the toxic, brutal world of American politics. And his entry point wasn't a grand declaration, but a quiet, calculated friendship. He knew that to truly own the system, he needed a key, and he found it in a man named John Slidell, a powerful Louisiana senator. Slidell was his guide into the very heart of the Democratic Party, the political machine of the pro-slavery South. For Belmont, this wasn't just networking, it was a total reinvention. He was no longer just a banker, he was becoming a political operator, hungry for an influence that money alone couldn't buy. He played the game so well that in 1860 they handed him the keys to their kingdom, making him national chairman. An immigrant banker, now leading the party of the Southern elite, just as the nation was about to tear itself apart.
So, what do you think he did when the first shots were fired? The answer is more cynical and more brilliant than you can possibly imagine. He did what only a master of the game would dare. He chose both sides. When the war began, August Belmont performed a political pirouette that would make Machiavelli proud. Overnight, the leader of the pro-South Democratic Party transformed himself into a passionate public champion of the Union. He wasn't just talking the talk, he personally raised and equipped an entire Union Army regiment, the first of its kind composed of German-American immigrants. He became President Lincoln's unofficial diplomat, using his vast European network to persuade the Rothschilds and other banking powers not to finance the Confederacy. A true patriot, it seemed. But that was only half the story. Simultaneously, as chairman of a deeply fractured Democratic Party, he was playing an entirely different game. He quietly created something called the Democratic Vigilant Association, a political group whose entire purpose was to promise the South that their rights, and by that everyone knew it meant slavery, would be protected after the conflict. So which was the real August Belmont? The Union patriot raising an army, or the political operator protecting his power base? Was it loyalty, or was it the ultimate hedge? The final piece of the puzzle tells you everything. While Belmont was publicly discouraging European loans to the Confederacy, somehow Confederate bonds still mysteriously found their way into the portfolios of Europe's elite investors. He had insulated himself perfectly. No matter who won, the House of Belmont would emerge stronger. He had walked the tightrope, playing both sides of America's bloodiest conflict and emerging wealthier than ever. He had conquered Wall Street and Washington. But for the new money elite, there was one final battlefield, and it was perhaps the most brutal of all: New York high society. To win this war, he would need a new kind of weapon, a strategic marriage that would fuse his fortune with America's oldest bloodline. And he found that weapon in a woman named Caroline Perry. She wasn't just anyone. She was the daughter of Commodore Matthew C. Perry, the man who had opened Japan to the West, American military royalty. With this one marriage, August fused his vast new fortune with the unshakable prestige of America's old bloodline. The outsider had bought his way in, and they didn't just enter society, they became its son. Their mansion at 109 Fifth Avenue was a palace, complete with the first private ballroom and art gallery in New York City. Imagine being there on a winter's night for one of their legendary masquerade balls. You'd hear the string quartet from the street, see the gas lights flickering on silks and velvets as guests stepped from their carriages. Inside, champagne flowed like water, and Caroline, now the undisputed queen of society, held court. But in the corners, behind feathered fans, you'd hear the whispers. They were in awe of him, but also deeply jealous. That man, a rival might mutter, he keeps everything except the 10 Commandments. They built a summer court in Newport, a sprawling estate they simply called By the Sea, cementing their status as the architects of Gilded Age excess. August Belmont had done it. He had built an empire of gold and marble. A king in his own Gilded Age court. But dynasties are fragile. What happens when the founder is gone? Does that fierce ambition simply die, or does it mutate? The Belmont legacy was about to take a turn so dramatic it would reshape the lives of millions, from the person riding the subway to the woman demanding the right to vote. It didn't just survive, it mutated. By the time August Belmont died in 1890, the immigrant who arrived with almost nothing was worth over $10 million, leaving behind a political machine he had fundamentally rewired. But his true legacy wasn't just the money, it was the ferocious ambition he passed down. Take his son, August Belmont Jr. He inherited his father's love for spectacle, becoming the titan of American horse racing, the man behind the Belmont Stakes and Belmont Park. But he also inherited his father's vision. The same strategic genius that navigated the Civil War was now channeled into carving tunnels of steel and light beneath Manhattan as he financed and built New York's very first subway system. But the most radical mutation of that Belmont ambition came from an in-law, Alva Vanderbilt Belmont. Once the ultimate Gilded Age socialite, she channeled her formidable will away from guest lists and toward revelation. The same defiant ambition that brought an immigrant family to the pinnacle of society was now being turned into a battering ram to tear down the walls of political inequality. She co-founded the National Woman's Party, bankrolling the most militant wing of the suffrage movement. And in a stunning break from the prejudices of her era, she insisted on fighting for the rights of all women, including black activists so often excluded from the mainstream cause. Think about that journey, from a small German town to the battlefields of the Civil War, to the tunnels beneath New York City, and finally to the front lines of the fight for the right to vote. The Belmonts didn't just climb America's social ladder, they fundamentally rebuilt the rungs. So what do you think? Is their legacy a classic American rags-to-riches tale, or was it built on something more devious? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you, like me, find beauty and meaning in the hidden stories that shaped our world, consider following. There are so many more journeys for us to take together.